Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we are specifically going to be talking about understanding motivation in politics. And so we're coming down to brass tacks, and we're heading up to the third debate for Andrew Yang. And this is specifically me talking about Andrew Yang and him, and a very strong need for him to dial in and very closely understand the motivation of every candidate that matters. And there's only 5 candidates that matter at this point. I believe the only real movers and shakers left are Andrew Yang, Biden, Sanders, Warren, Harris. That's it. That's all there is, right? There's a bunch of other people making some motions and some, it's all kind of like activity and no progress, right? All right. So, but for those 5, they are moving forward, and I think it's really critical that Andrew Yang understands motivation. Now, I want to talk about why this is so important, okay? I think when you don't fully understand motivation, you can display ignorance to opponents, and you can spend energy doing things that aren't necessary, okay? Now, I'm specifically thinking about this because I had an event that happened to me recently, personally, and it kind of really opened my eyes about motivation, right? So I want to share that story with you, and then I want to go through what I think is the motivation of each and every single one of the Fast Five: Yang, Biden, Warren, Harris, and Sanders, okay? All right, let's talk them through. Okay, so basically, I play Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering came out in 1993, so how old does that make it? It's 7 plus 9, it's like 26 years old, all right? So, yeah, it's like 26 years old game right now. It is a super unique hobby, Magic the Gathering. I play in a league every Friday night with one of my sons. I played with my older son, now I play with my younger son. We play in a league every Friday night for Friday Night Magic. We play in a FLGS, a friendly local game shop, and there's usually about 15 to 25 people there, and we play a tournament. It goes about 3 hours long, and we play in successive rounds, and at the end of the night, whoever's won the most wins these prize packs, right? Which are you don't have to pay to play in the tournaments. By the way, Friday Night Magic is awesome. It's super fun. You don't have to pay any money, and there's usually prizes at the end for free, right? So it's really nice. Right now, Magic the Gathering is a game where you have collectible cards, and you collect these cards. When you buy a pack of 15 cards, you don't know what's going to be in them. Then you build the best deck you can from the cards you've purchased, right? And then you play against other players. You have a 60-card deck, they have a 60-card deck, and you're competing with each other, but you're both bringing a constructed deck, a deck that you constructed, right? So I was playing through these rounds, and I hit this one player, and I was beating this player, and the player got upset, and this happens every now and then. It's to be expected. By the way, I'm not the best winner in the world too, and I've had some pretty bad reactions. I can be a little salty when I lose as well. So this guy, he's on tilt, right? And he looks at my play mat, right? And he goes, "Hey, what's wrong with your play mat?" Right? So a play mat is a special mat that you roll out and you put your cards on them. Magic Gathering cards can be worth a lot of money. So usually a deck that you're playing, right? A single deck will usually run between $100 all the way up to literally $3,000 or $4,000. Okay, the decks I usually run between $250 and about $750 for all the cards that are in the deck. The deck I was running that night was worth about $500 with the cards that were in it, right? And this is standard mat. Yeah, I think we were playing Modern. All right, so there's different formats, right? So this is about $500 deck. All right, so we're playing, right? And basically, this guy, he recognized my play mat. Now, a play mat it's like this neoprene mat. You lay it out, and the reason why and all your cards are sleeved, so they're protected with these sleeves, these plastic sleeves. And then you're putting your protected cards on top of a protective mat that keeps the sleeves from getting scuffed on the table, right? So these cards are very valuable and they're very protected, right? So I was playing with this play mat, right? And the guy's like, "Hey, your play mat is water damaged." And I was like, yeah, but it's fully dry, right? Like, it's, that water damage happened a few years ago. And the guy's like, well, listen, well, as soon as we're done with this match, I'll give you a play mat. And I was like, oh, no, that's okay. I don't need a play mat. Now, we're in the middle of a game here, right? Like, and I'm like, thank you very much. I appreciate the offer, but I like this mat. And he's like, don't you see the water damage? And I was like, yes, yeah, I see the water damage, but this is a fully functioning mat. That water damage happened, like literally 4 or 5 years ago. The mat's completely dry. It's completely functional. I like this mat. And he's like, that mat is trash. It's literally should be in the trash, right? And I'm like, well, no, like, I like this mat, and it has, I like the art. I like a whole bunch of things about it. And I did not tell him why I like this mat because it wasn't his business. But I'm going to tell you, right? And so the guy gets like, he's like, well, I don't understand why you would refuse a free mat when the mat you're using is literally water damaged, right? And he's just like really on tilt. And he's like, forget it, right? And like he literally like, I quit, right? And he rage quits, right? Like, actually, he did not rage quit. He was not like raging. He was visibly upset, right? And he just got upset and he quit. He quit the game, right? Now, I won the match, right? That's no problem. I just went on with a win to the next round, right? Now, what this guy didn't understand was my motivation for using that mat, right? So that mat was a championship mat. That mat is literally from, we're talking, it's like 2014. Yeah, it's 2014. It's 2014 Star City Championship mat, right? So my son, my oldest son, we played Magic the Gathering for no less than 6 or 7 years together in Friday Night Magic, went to Friday Night Magic every week. And my son, we knew 20 or 30 people at the shop we were playing at, and he's incredibly good at Magic. He's much, much better than I am, Magic the Gathering. He's like really, he has a degree in computer science and high math, right, and mathematics. Like, he's just smart. My son is way smarter than me, right? So, like, we played for a long time, right? And literally, the week before he went to college for the first time ever, right? He graduated from high school as a valedictorian, and he was going away. He was going to go 300 miles away from our home, and it was the last time. This is the last week where he would ever be living in my house, for periods other than 3 months at a time, And so right before that, me and my son went into a special tournament, not a Friday Night Magic League tournament, which is kind of just fun every week and kind of like Little League, everybody gets to play. This is a paid tournament. There were 90 top players, and these players had come from as high up as Maine all the way down to as low as Maryland, right? So all kinds of players from all kinds of areas, and this was a Pro Tour qualifier, right? So if you did well in this tournament, you would literally qualify to join the Pro Tour, right? To go to a Pro Tour event, right? And if you continue to do well in that, you could become literally a professional Magic the Gathering player, right? Well, my son, right? He won. Like he crushed it. He beat every. He went through like 8 rounds of play. And he defeated, 8 people, but representatively, he defeated everybody at that tournament, right? He defeated 90 people who were trying to get into the Pro Tour, right? And he won this play mat. He won a whole bunch of stuff. He won money. He won prize cards. He won this play mat, right? So he took the money. He took the cards, and he even he got some signed cards from artists. It was really cool. And it was really special to me too because we had played for 7 or 8 years, right? And first like 6, 7, 8 years, and just going every Friday night, playing at Friday Night Magic, and then after Friday Night Magic, we had a tradition. We'd go to Applebee's, we'd go with friends, and there was a whole table, and we'd have table discussions, and so this was like a punctuation point on the sentence that was Magic the Gathering for me and my son, right? And so he went off to college. By the way, he didn't even go to he won, earning a right to go to the Pro Tour qualifier, but he's like, I'm getting a math degree with computer science. I had time to chase the Pro Tour, right? And so he didn't go, and he didn't even use the ticket he won, which I'm sure a lot of the players there would not be happy to hear that. But he liked the cash prize. He liked and for him it was about defeating opponents, right? And he did. And this was essentially at the end of his F&M career, right? And so he slam dunked this. He won this entire tournament. He used the money, he used the cards, but the playmat stayed at home, right? And I remember it was around the house, and then one day, my other son, I think he just like left it in the hallway, and it got drug. I think somebody else drug it into the bathroom, and it got like water from the shower got on this playmat. And I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is like, but my son didn't even care about it, right? Like for him, this playmat didn't mean anything, right? But it got water damage from the shower. I pulled it out, I dried it off, and then I used that as my playmat, right? And that playmat, which says 2014 All-State, 2014 Star City PTQ champion, right? PTQ qualifier, Pro Tour qualifier champion, which I'm not the champion, he was. But I use that all the time now, right? And it's even water damaged, right? Now, I waited until it dried out. It, doesn't have any effect on my cards. And I use that every week now, right? And it looks terrible, but it doesn't matter. It's fully functional. And to me, this is a memory of this time with my son. That's my motivation, right? So I don't care about a brand new play mat. I want this mat, right? That player did not understand my motivation. He displayed his ignorance and he got on tilt, right? Because he didn't understand my motivation. All right. My point is, it is critical that Andrew Yang understands the motivation of every single major opponent. Let's tick them off. All right. Let's go with Elizabeth Warren first. So actually, you know what? Let's talk about Andrew Yang first, right? So I don't think Andrew Yang knows his actual motivation, right? I think Andrew Yang does not know his actual motivation. And I think that's really interesting that he doesn't. I think that Andrew Yang's motivation for running for president is to fulfill his destiny. I really think that Andrew Yang is, this UBI idea, this will break the world and then fix the world, right? I'm convinced of that, right? This is a chaos level platform replacement, right? Like this thing it's going to be huge, right? It's capitalism that doesn't start at zero. I think there's going to be a 3 to 6 month period of controlled chaos, right? And then I really think this is going to set the new model for governments for 200 years going forward, right? Until we're all living on Mars and the moon. And hopefully it'll be sooner than that. But, I think UBI is brilliant. He recognizes, and I really think, Andrew Yang is, he's double Ivy League genius with the heart of a noble person, right? And the reality is, I don't think he sees himself that way, but I think he has a sense that he is not a normal person. He is a legendary person. And I think through every step in his life, if you look at his history, he's trying to fulfill his destiny, right? And I think that's what running for president is I think Andrew Yang recognizes the greatness within himself. I don't think he says that to himself out loud, and he is trying to fulfill his destiny. That is what I think the motivation of Andrew Yang is. I don't think he's aware of that motivation. I think he probably thinks something else in his head. But I really think that is the motivation of Andrew Yang. What is the motivation of Elizabeth Warren, right? Now, this is me looking at her, what she's expressed and what she's accomplished and where she has spent her time, right? And when you look at Elizabeth Warren, I believe that her motivation for running for president is to perform well a civic duty, right? I do think she is a dyed-in-the-wool Washington insider. She's been there a long time, but I think that impacts her in some negative ways. But I think at her heart, just listening to her policies and the way she's moving forward and the way she's choosing to fight in this primary period, I think she really has a heart to serve this country as a civic duty. She recognizes that, she has the ability to lead, and I think she's serving as to be and to do a civic duty. Okay? All right. What about Biden? Biden has the absolute worst actual motivation for running for president. And this is very clear when he said he's like, I'm running because I see a huge problem in Trump. Biden's motivation is Trump bad. I need to be president so that Trump will not be president. I don't think Biden wants to be president. I think he wants Trump to not be president. I think this is an absolutely horrible motivation. And in addition to that, I think it's really bad, too, because the idea that 20 other people that were like 10 to 15 other candidates who were already in the election, the idea that they would not be able to beat Trump and that only Biden could, a lot of hubris there. I just think overall this idea that I don't want to be president, I just don't want Trump to be president, absolutely terrible motivation to be president. It's just such an important role that to me you should want it. Like you should want it, right? And the idea of just that your motivation is to stop somebody else from getting it or retaining it, I just think it's a really bad motivation. All right. So Sanders. Sanders, I think his motivation is, it's. I don't think he's hiding it. He wishes to propagate democratic socialism, democratic socialism, right? He talks about it every day. He is absolutely for breaking down the wealthy, and he is absolutely for breaking down industry. Right? He's like, I'm going to dismantle this industry. I'm going to dismantle that industry. I'm going to take these millionaires and billionaires. I'm going to disrupt them, and I'm going to make sure that they have less. Right? And that is all pure democratic socialist. Right? He is like to the bone marrow. He is a Democrat socialist. Right? And so I really think that is his banner. He's been carrying it for 30 years, and I think his true motivation is to progress democratic socialism in America, to break down industry, to break down the wealthy, right? That is his motivation. I think it's absolutely critical Andrew Yang understands that. All right. What is the motivation of Kamala Harris? Got a surprise for you on this one. I do not know. I really don't. I have really been watching Kamala very carefully. She is really an incredibly interesting candidate. Super, super smart. Super capable, really got a fighter core to her, like she, that prosecutor history. But when I look at her and even when I hear the words she's saying and I see the direction she's heading, I don't know why she's running for president, right? I think it could be a host of things, right? But I don't really feel that I have a strong understanding of it, right? And I think one of the things is that might make her the most dangerous in the pack. Right? Because it was just like that guy the other night, right? He was upset because he did not understand my motivation for keeping that playmat, right? And not accepting a gift that was being offered, right? And for him, he just didn't have space in his brain for that, right? And so for that very reason, I think Andrew Yang needs to pay very, very close attention to Kamala Harris and make sure that he figures her motivation out, right? And I think it's really, really critical. So it is my opinion that Andrew Yang, in order to defeat these opponents, really needs to understand their motivation. All of that is my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion, and I especially would like to hear, what do you think is the motivation of Kamala Harris? By the way, if she has said, my motivation is XYZ, right? That does not necessarily mean that is her motivation, because especially for a politician, right? One, they may have a motivation that they feel is not appropriate to tell the public, and that is like, Andrew Yang's, right? I don't think he could tell the public, I'm running for president to fulfill my destiny. You couldn't say that out loud, right? I think it's true. I think it's a completely noble motivation, but I don't think you could tell the public that, right? So I think that's really critical so she could have a motivation that she can't share the public with. Here's another one. She could have a motivation that she could specifically have a motivation. I think this one is really fascinating, that she's not aware of, right? She could say, oh, my motivation is XYZ, but really have a motivation that she's not aware of. I think this is really big. I think a lot of people are not self-aware. And I think the same thing of myself. I think I know a lot about myself, but I also know there are aspects of my heart, soul, and mind that are opaque to me. Right, and I think so. Kamala Harris is definitely the same. So in some ways, like if a politician is like, oh, my motivation is XYZ, does that match with your behavior? Does that match with your environment? Does that match with your history? Right, just because you said it, that doesn't mean it's correct, right? So because I'm not sure all politicians are actually aware of their own motivations. all that is my opinion. I would love to hear your opinion, and let me know what you think Kamala Harris's motivation is. Thank you very much. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.